what you're gonna do.
You can't fight the future.
Wrestling God.
ProWrestlingRadio.com presents.
Are you talking to me?
Pro Wrestling Radio live online.
You think The Rock actually cares?
What is he doing here?
Oh, it's true.
I'm bringing everybody with me.
That's hard time.
To be the man. 6, 1.
Can you feel it?
I hate your ever. Hold the damn phone.
That's how I roll.
You're sex at the picture. Come get some. Because I've done all of that.
The king is back on his throne.
Excuse me.
And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
And we are live on Pro Wrestling Radio. My name is Eric Gargiulo, and I am here with my co-host, as always, Luke Hawx, and we have a lot to get to. We are back after a week off, and I believe, Luke, are we going to be here for the hour, or are we going to be here for 45 minutes tonight?
We'll be here as long as it takes. I say we do this, we knock it out, and, we roll with the punches.
Awesome. I love it. And, if you're listening to the show, I have this show all over the place. I have this show on YouTube. I have this show on iTunes, on Stitcher. I have it. I put it up on a couple of other different places, too. So if you're listening to this recorded, you can always join the show live over at ProWrestlingRadio.com/listen. And you don't have to download anything. You could just listen to it right there. We broadcast on Mixlr, and there's also a chat room that you could jump into as well. All you have to do is log in with your social media credentials. So, yeah, you can do that when we broadcast the show live. But with that said, Luke, there is a lot to get to. I think the first topic on the board today would be Extreme Rules. The pay-per-view was this past Sunday night. I got a chance to see it. Did you get a chance to see the show?
No, I missed out. Perry got to see it, though.
Oh, Perry got to see it. Did Perry like the show? Perry's Luke's son, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you like the show?
It was a pretty good pay-per-view, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a show myself, so I was on the road all Sunday, so I didn't get back until about 1 in the morning. Well, 1 Monday morning.
Oh, okay. What did you hear about it? Like from your friends or your colleagues?
Well, the biggest thing I seen mostly was on Twitter was the finish between Cena and Ryback.
Yeah.
So, I should have Googled it and tried to pull up a little link to see what they did. But what ended up happening? What was the big commotion about?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. For those of you that don't know, they had a last man standing match. And for those of you that don't know, last man standing match is basically like the old school Texas death matches that I used to watch as a kid here in Philly when WWWF and WWF would come to town. They'd have these Texas death matches where, the guys would have a 10 count to get up, and whoever couldn't get up past the count of 10, the other guy was the winner. So, they had their match, which actually really wasn't that bad. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, at least the first half. The second half got a little ridiculous, and we can get into that, but the story here is really the finish. The finish of the match was Ryback picking up Cena and giving him a spear through the wall, like through that like stage wall where they all come out. You've come out of that wall several times in your career, so
Right.
You're familiar with that wall. So Ryback speared him through the wall, and they played it off like there was electrocution, there were shocks, they had like some minor pyro go off. And, yeah, and then they show them backstage, and they're both down. They're both out. Cena's not moving. Ryback's moving a little bit, and they're playing it off like it's a real deal. Like these guys are really hurt, and there's a serious injury here. But what winds up happening is, God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What winds up happening is the medics put a neck brace on Cena and wind up taking him out on a stretcher where they help Ryback, and he leaves and he walks back. And what was weird about it, Luke, was they didn't announce the winner at that point. They just kind of cut away. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, okay, you have Cena being stretchered out in a neck brace. You have Ryback, who's up with help, of course, but he's up and walking to the back. By the rules of a last man standing match, Ryback should be the winner. He's up, he's walking, whether it's with assistance or not. Cena's not. He's on the stretcher, and they never announced the finish. Their excuse was that neither guy got up at the count of 10. So it was a draw, but they never announced it. It was a bullshit finish, and it was bull because they didn't even announce it, so they knew that it was a bad finish.
Well, didn't they do the same thing Monday night with Kurt Axel? I know we'll get into this later, but with Kurt Axel and Triple H, they didn't announce a finish where Triple H should have been counted out.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, Luke, that they would do this stuff 2 nights in a row. They do these like major injury angles 2 nights in a row. So basically the controversy around this finish is that it's a last man standing match, and you had Ryback walking away essentially, Cena stretchered, and yet he didn't get the title. And, for me, Luke, I don't really have a problem with that finish in any other match. I mean, I think it's actually a pretty creative finish because neither guy has to do a job, and they're both put over strong, so you can come back with a rematch. But why in the world would you why would you book a last man standing match if that's your finish? So I don't know about you. You're kind of hearing the finish from me.
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I didn't see it, but the way you described it, like you said, I would think it's a BS finish.
Yeah.
If Ryback was, and I say that because the way you explain it, it sounds like the belt should have been the Ryback if both men weren't, completely down and out.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the controversy. And, the fans in St. Louis were chanting bull. And, Twitter was going nuts with people chanting. And, it's like, I don't really care. I'm not invested one way or the other. I could really care less if Ryback goes over or Cena goes over. But, you're charging people $50, $60 to watch this last man standing match. You have a guy get up and walk away. Yeah, and you're not giving him a finish. It just seemed kind of cheap to me. Yeah.
I would imagine. It sounds like I'd be pissed if I would have paid for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, and it turned into a little bit more controversial because they were promoting this post-game show throughout the pay-per-view. They were doing this post-game show, and I didn't see it. Once the pay-per-view was over, I was done. I went up to bed. But from what I saw the next morning, that Cena took his neck brace off and really didn't even sell the injury on the post-game show. So it's like, okay, you have this finish where this guy stretchered out with a neck brace, and then 20 minutes later he's on the post-game show just hanging out. And it's funny because I was talking to one of the writers on Camel Clutch blog about it, and I said that it's a perfect finish for a heel champion. You have a heel champion in one of these kind of matches, and you have that champion kind of fake it, so to speak, that he gets taken out in the stretcher, and he gets taken out with the neck brace, and then once, everything kind of settles down, you see him later just pop up and no-sell the injury. So, I mean, I think it's a great finish for a heel, but it just made no sense. They went through all this trouble, and he didn't even sell the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where we get into the Super Cena stuff because, for a while there, Cena couldn't be touched. He now at least he sells a lot now. That's one thing I'll say about Cena. And I won't knock Cena's hard work. And I guess it's not Cena's fault.
Yeah.
I guess that's because we got to remember WWE has agents, they have writers, they have all this. So I'm sure Cena has input, and I'm sure Cena has a lot of input. But at the end of the day, I would think he doesn't.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up on us there a little bit, and I don't want to miss any of the important words that are coming out of your microphone.
Let's turn it off. How about that? Is it better?
Not we're getting like feedback on you.
Really? I don't know why. I'm about 2 feet away from my Wi-Fi box.
All right, there we. I think that sounds a little better.
All right.
Yeah. So you were talking about Super Cena. And I guess that kind of brings me to my next point, and this is something I wanted to talk about too with you, is that, there was this outcry, this backlash on the internet about Super Cena after the match, and especially when he didn't sell it, when he didn't sell the thing on the post-game show. And, you had people outraged, and they're sick of Cena, and, they think that Cena's just getting this monster push, and they want WWE to do something different. And, I don't know about you, but I'm not a big Cena fan. I respect what he's done, and I think he's a hard worker. But it's just not my thing. Not what I like to watch. But
he is guilty, right? Which is okay. I mean, he generally doesn't appeal to our demographic. So, and that's not what they got him there for, because he's that's not what he's selling to. He's selling towards the kids and towards the girls, and I would think guys that appeal to our demographic are more of the hard workers, like not saying, and I don't say that Cena don't work hard, more the Bryan Danielsons, those guys, the Dean Ambrose, who's somebody who's on the indies you want to pay attention to, you really want to see get pushed more instead of the commercial guy, so to say.
Yeah, and and to your point, it's like when it comes to people like you and me, we're in the minority, and I don't think people realize that. When people get on the internet and they bitch and complain about about Cena and that kind of thing, and they want CM Punk to have this monster push and Daniel Bryan to have this monster push. I love Daniel Bryan. I'd like to see it too. And you and I already talked about Cesaro, but at the end of the day, you and I and a lot of those fans are such a small minority that, like you said, their business are the families, the wives that are bugging their husbands to go and watch, and their boyfriends to watch Cena, and the kids that are bugging their parents to buy those goofy looking hats. And at the end of the day, nothing's going to change. And if I were running that business, and Luke, I'm sure if you were in charge of WWE, you'd probably do the same thing. You'd probably be pushing Cena to the moon too.
Of course, yeah. It's one of the things. Well, why wouldn't you? He's he's a top guy, of course, and he works hard. He sells tickets, and there is a noticeably major difference in seats and sales when Cena is on the show and not on the show. And yeah. I mean that if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Bottom line. So Cena sells tickets. Cena's got to be a top guy. And at the same time, Cena stepped back. He took a break for a long time.
Yeah.
There was many times when Cena wasn't there or didn't have the main spot. And I don't remember who had it at the time. It might have been Punk, but so at the same time, Cena has to have his due and his time. And again, how long it's going to last? I hope not forever.
Yeah.
I hope they give somebody else a chance, and I guess what Cena's doing now is building Ryback. We'll see what they do with Ryback, but I'd also like to see some other guys in that spot. And at this point, I don't know who else could take that spot. Who do you think could take that spot?
Well, that's exactly my point. I wrote a blog on this, and that was exactly my point. It's like, you're tired of Cena, you don't want him pushed anymore, you want something new. But what else is there? There's not anybody else, I don't think anyway. I don't think there's anybody else in there that can do the kind of business that he does. And it's funny, Luke, because you have people, and I think that when you're in the business, you get a better appreciation for this stuff. When you're in the business, you look more at the dollars and cents. And you're a promoter, you're a wrestler, you're a trainer. I've booked, I've been an announcer. I even wrestled back in the day. I'm always looking at the dollars and cents. What's putting asses in the seats. And whenever, like you said, whenever Cena hasn't been that top guy, the same amount of asses have not been in those seats. So I'm looking at the roster now, and I don't see anybody that can even touch him in terms of drawing power.
Right, and I tell you, every time I'm there, I see a ton of smoking hot chicks in John Cena shirts.
Wow.
So there's every time I'm up there, that's no BS, man. I always see a ton of hot girls, and if they're not all slutted up, they're wearing Cena gear.
Wow.
So, and that speaks volumes. So somebody has to draw that crowd. They like Orton too, but I think they like Cena more.
Yeah, and it's not like they haven't experimented. It's like you look back at CM Punk and you look at the big push they gave him. I always go back to Money in the Bank 2011, which those same fans that complained about Cena, that was their crowning moment. That was what they've always wanted to see, was that CM Punk and that angle. And at the end of the day, it didn't really do that much business. And here we are, so many years later. And I know there's a lot of people that like Punk, and I thought his match with Undertaker was great at Mania. And again, I respect what he's done. But at the end of the day, he doesn't put behinds in the seats like Cena does. And for these people to be complaining over and over again, get Cena out of there, put Punk in there. That's all well and good. But trying to explain that to the stockholders when they're looking at the ratings and they're looking at the buy rates and the merchandise sales, and they're wondering what the hell happened to John Cena.
There's a few reasons for that, though. I think one is definitely a look thing, because Punk's not a jacked up muscle head, and two, most of the time, like right now, Punk's a heel.
Right.
Well, Punk. Are you there?
Yep.
Yeah. Punk comes from a different angle than John Cena does. They're two completely different characters.
Yeah.
So a CM Punk is not going to appeal as much to a child than a John Cena would or a Kane would. And, most of our audience is kids.
Yeah.
So I would say, what would you say that the audience ratio is?
Oh God, I would definitely say when you look at the demographics, I would say it's majority families, kids, wives and husbands. I mean, I think people, like you and I think, teenagers, or I would say, kids in their 20s. I don't think they make up a big chunk of it. I think really it's families.
Yeah, I would totally agree that it's families, and the CM Punk style doesn't appeal to an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid.
Right.
That's where the Rey Mysterio comes in, or the Cena, or the Kane.
Yep.
So the teenagers want to see Punk, the younger guys want to see Punk, and they really appreciate his work value, but or his quote unquote shooting, stuff like that. But when it comes to kids, they don't understand that. And at the end of the day, when this kid's begging on his, pulling on his dad's pocket, saying, "I want to go see Raw, I want to go see Raw, I want to go see John Cena, I want to go see Rey Mysterio," that's what it all relies on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of wrap this up, it's I can certainly understand the frustration because Cena's not a guy that I personally enjoy watching, but at the end of the day, it's like you just come to grips with this guy's not going anywhere. It's either watch a different promotion, get some tapes, watch Wildcat Sports,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Or stop watching wrestling because nothing's going to change, and I feel bad for you because here's a question, and I wrote I wrote about this a little bit in my blog. And if I grew up now, I started watching wrestling when I was like 8 years old. How old were you when you started watching wrestling?
I guess that was my heyday. My earliest memories are 3.
Oh wow.
I loved it. I even got I got some old pictures of me at about 3 years old holding up Hulk Hogan dolls.
Wow.
But that probably about 8 or 9 in that age was where I really, was full-fledged into it. Because when you're younger, I don't have too many memories of the 5, 6, 7 age range,
Yeah.
I guess my kid range memories were from 8 and beyond, and I always remember being a major fan from that point. So.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So 3. Yeah. So it was 8 for me, and I was saying the other day that if I grew up now, if I was 8 years old now, and I started watching wrestling, I hate to say it, but I don't even think I'd be a fan because, I could never see myself, even as a kid. I never really got into guys like John Cena. I liked Roddy Piper, when I was a kid watching wrestling. I liked Captain Lou Albano. I liked Magnificent Morocco. I always liked the heels. And, I think if I was watching wrestling now as an 8-year-old kid and just discovering it, and I saw John Cena on there, and it was Cena, I don't even really think that I would stick with it. I think I'd probably watch a couple of shows and probably tune out.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I don't remember at that age. I remember that I like guys like The Warrior and Hogan, and I wanted to see. And I say my favorite wrestlers were Perfect and Hennig and Rude. But I remember those didn't really come along later till I was around 12 or 13. Wow, I really started paying attention to those guys and watching the work value and saying, oh, God, these guys are good, or liking what they're doing. I think when I was a kid, I was more fascinated with the cartoon aspect of it.
Yeah, and me too. I definitely had that period when I got into that cartoon aspect, and it's funny because even today, I'll admit I think John Cena is a heck of a lot better in the ring than the Ultimate Warrior. But honestly, I'd probably watch an Ultimate Warrior match before I'd watch his match, just because I grew up in that era.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think Warrior had more drawing power. I think Warrior really screwed up. Then again, Warrior wasn't around as much as Cena is, because so back in the day, we might have been saying the same thing. If we got burnt out on the Warrior, how many times did Warrior disappear?
Yeah, a lot.
And it always happened. There were certain guys that you wanted to see more of. Like that's one thing that used to kill me with Mr. Perfect. He would always disappear.
Yeah. And
I had no reason. I wonder where the hell the guy went.
Yeah. So. When's the first time? You and I grew up in different eras of wrestling, but when's the first time? You're
super old.
Yeah, I am super old, Luke. I am. Very true. When was it that you kind of I don't want to say smartened up, but started reading newsletters, or like how did you discover newsletters and that kind of thing?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't get in that till the internet years.
Yeah.
Much later. my maybe late teens, early 20s. I don't even know if I got into it then.
Wow.
Until to this day, I still don't like it. I don't, I hate them. I hate these stupid websites that want to spoil it. And I hate all these jackasses on the internet who say, oh, they don't. And I think I told you this. I think we talked about this on the first podcast. I'm not sure. But I preach it. I hate these jackasses who sit there, they get on the internet and they bash everything and they say, oh, I'm not surprised. I don't, they never do this and never do that. But these guys are the first ones going, hey, I took a picture of Chris Jericho at the airport today. He's a surprise guy. And they put it all over.
Yes.
So, it's like you're going to sit here and you're going to complain about it, yet you're the same jackasses, who want to be the first ones to spoil it for everybody. So I'd rather not read it because I like to be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that makes good. You make a good point. I don't know. I've always been fascinated with the inner workings of the business and all the gaga and stuff like that. I mean, I love reading, history books on wrestling, like Luthez's book. There was one.
Luthez's book was one of the best books I ever read.
Absolutely, and you learn so much. I mean, you really do. In some of the shoot interviews that I've got to conduct with our video, when I talk to the old school guys, I mean, you're
lucky. You're a lucky guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really am. But I was going to mention, I think it was like 86 or 87. I used to, I'm from Philly, so I used to go to the Spectrum, and there was this group of guys. I remember one guy's name was Richie, who's no longer with us, and I forget who these other guys were. And they had Meltzer's newsletter, and this was like 86, like 80, 85, 86, somewhere around there. And they used to bring it to the Spectrum, and they would read it, and they would kind of like pass it around. And somehow I was able to get my hands on it. And I was like hooked, like immediately. I mean, this is like 86.
They didn't have that stuff down here. This is what the South was a whole different machine.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like I said, it's still like that now. I mean, they have the internet, sure, but like the crowd is so different. There's such a night and day difference in a Philly and an LA crowd compared to a Southern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama crowd. I mean, this is old school. They're popping on, a drop kick here on a hip toss.
Yeah.
Where up in Philly, they're going to, you start doing that stuff, they're going to start chanting, this is boring, so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just, I remember reading it early and just, and just getting hooked. And it's funny because, I've been reading Meltzer's, since 86. And, I mean, sometimes I like what Meltzer says, and then sometimes I'm not a fan, but I've always respected him because, I mean, I don't know. It's just I've been reading him for so many years that you just kind of, you just kind of follow along. But so many other guys have tried to pop up over the years, and some of them I've been friends with, some of them I've been enemies with, and I just think that nobody has even, I would say Wade Keller's probably come the closest, and Wade's been around for a long time. I remember reading Wade's sheet, a while back too, but like nobody's really like touched like Meltzer, and I know some people will be offended by that, but it's just I don't know. I don't even know how we got on this topic, but I just was curious about like in the South, like how you got onto that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really didn't, and I still to this day don't. I'll read stuff, but I don't believe everything I read on the internet. First off,
yeah,
and being in the locker room, I find out a lot of it's BS half the time, or it is what people make of it. But it's just one of the things I didn't care to know what's going on. I mean, do I want to know what's going on? Yeah, but I don't want spoilers, I would say. But I like to know who's got heat and who's got this. But
right.
When you think about it, it's half of it's not true. They say, oh, Antonio Cesaro's in the doghouse, or this guy. It's like, come on, like this guy's working hard. This guy's out here busting his ass. He's one of the best things I got on the card. And what would a guy like that be in a doghouse for?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I know him personally. He's a gentleman of gentlemans.
Oh, so he's a gentleman. He's hilarious. He's the best. I love that guy.
Yeah. So you go when you read something like that, you're thinking, how the hell would a guy like this be in a doghouse? Because he's in the doghouse because they dropped the title. They took the title off him.
Yeah.
Come on.
And what's funny too is, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I mean, I've always kind of looked at it from the perspective as having a job in the business. And I always think that it's weird when people get so outraged that this guy is getting buried and this guy's not being used right. And yet, at the end of the day, the guy's got a contract. The guy's making 6 figures a year. The guy's living his dream. And maybe his dream isn't putting over, Randy Orton in 3 minutes. But at the end of the day, he's not working in a sunglass hut. He's not, working at the gym. He's not, digging ditches. He's working in the WWE. And
which I've done about just everything you named.
Yeah, exactly. And, and it's fun. And I know, and I know you, and I know, hundreds of talented wrestlers that would, that would do anything to get that opportunity. I mean, I don't know, Luke, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you wouldn't mind making 6 figures a year to put over Randy Orton in 3 minutes.
No, I'd be wearing a dress if they told me to. So it's just, and so would so many other guys. Not saying that's what you'd be happy doing,
right?
But at the same time, you're happy making a name and being there and getting paid and getting a paycheck to do what you love. And it's like one of those things where I hear all these guys bitching about going to FCW or being down in developmental. What are you bitching about? You're getting paid to train, to do something you're supposed to be doing anyway.
Yep.
You're getting paid to do it. Otherwise, you'd be at home working a 9-to-5 job, and probably busting your balls somewhere and trying to fit in training.
Yep.
So when you're there, you're getting paid, and that's all you have to do. And then the rest of the time is your free time. Or your time, you take a guy like Xavier Woods, who a lot of people don't notice. This guy is such a hard worker behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. Xavier Woods is not only is he using his time there, he's wrestling, he's now getting his PhD.
Wow.
So this guy's going to be a doctor, and he's doing it all while he's under WWE contract, while he's there training. And he's using his free time to go to school and get his PhD.
Good
how many guys do that?
Yeah, good. Well, wasn't Shane Douglas supposed to go back to school and get his PhD?
That's what I heard. I wonder how that worked for him.
Yeah, and it's funny because generally, I remember reading in Bret Hart's book, and the one thing that he said that really stuck out is he said when he first got to the WWF that he was frustrated because he was working hard and he was having these good matches with Dynamite Kid, but he really wasn't getting anywhere. He wasn't getting a big push. He was kind of slotted as that opening mid-card guy and really didn't see anything on the horizon. And I think he said it was Pat Patterson that took him aside. It was either Pat Patterson or Chief Jay Strongbow that told him to hang in there because the cream always rises to the top. And I think that that's true even today because you look at a guy like Daniel Bryan, and you go back to, he won Money in the Bank, and everybody thought that he was off to the races and he was going to get this monster push. And for the next 6 months, the guy got jobbed out every friggin' night. Every friggin' night, the guy was doing a job for somebody. And then eventually he got his push, and now here we are. I think it's a year and a half later, and the guy's one of the most over guys in the company. The guy has a phenomenal spot, in the company, and the guy is probably making a hell of a wage. He was just on WrestleMania. I'm sure he's getting a nice payoff of that. He's slotted in decent matches to get decent payoffs. My point being, when it comes to Antonio Cesaro, I know, and just about everybody out there knows that a guy like him is talented. Look at Dolph Ziggler. Everybody was bitching about Dolph Ziggler, me included, but eventually, the cream rises to the top. So my point being here is that eventually, it might not be now, it might not be next month, it might not even be next year, but at some point, Cesaro is going to get his shot, and when he gets it, he's going to be ready, and I think at that point in time, he'll be able to solidify that spot somewhere on the roster.
Right. I mean, and he's cashing checks, and I can promise you, he's much more happier doing what he's doing now than what he used to do.
Yeah.
So, he is a household name now.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the other thing, Luke. How great would it be for you? You go up there. Let's say you sign with the WWE. Things don't work out, but you're on their TV for 2 years. After that, your career changes. You can ask for more money on the Indies. You get more money at autograph signings. You're a WWE superstar. You can take it to Hollywood, maybe parlay it into something. I mean, you're just given such an opportunity that whether you're looking at the lights or you're wrestling in the main event. I mean, man, that is just the ultimate dream right there.
And that's one thing I talked to Punk about. I talked to Punk about a lot, actually, when Punk first really started getting his push and won his first world title, the WWE title.
Yeah.
I said, dude, and then after he did the thing in Chicago, I was like, you're set for life now.
Yep.
You're set for life.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what you do from this point on, unless you murder somebody, and even O.J. Simpson got away with that,
yeah.
but you are set for life. You can make a living a good living just doing comic book conventions and this and that. You know, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do ever again.
Yep.
So guys don't really appreciate the value of going up there. But at the same time, they get accustomed to the way they're living up there, and I see it all the time. Guys go up there, they think they're going to make that money forever, and then they get released, and they can't cope with not making that money or trying to find a full-time job or, you know, and that's part of the reason so many guys kill themselves.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. I mean, you know, for me, my plan was when I was announcing full-time and things were going really well and it kind of looked like that I might have an opportunity up there, you know, my plan from day one was like 3 to 4 years, save my money, live at home the whole time, and then just get the hell out of there, you know, and not put up with the bullshit, or put up with the bullshit for 3-4 years, and then just get out of there and, you know, do something with it, you know, get into radio, you know, get into major league sports, you know, something. I mean, I always kind of looked at it as, you know, living my dream, but kind of using it as a stepping stone. And I never got there, but, you know, it's just, it amazes me sometimes when you have guys that'll hang around and they break their bodies and you know, and they sacrifice so much when, you know, if they would have gotten out of there a couple years earlier, you know, they'd be healthier and they'd be set and they'd have so much opportunity.
I mean, look at Taz.
Yeah.
Taz is a prime example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's a shame because I honestly think you should have had a spot there. You're a talented guy. I don't say that because you're a friend. I genuinely like your work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I do believe that, you know, there's a lot you could still do, and the thing about you is there's really no age limit on commentators.
There's not, but you know what? It's like you feel kind of silly. You know, it was great when it was such a different business. I mean, you know how it is. It was such a different business back in 2000 when I started doing it and really was doing it from like 2000 to 2008. You know, the indies were much hotter. I was younger. I didn't have a family. You could make a lot of money back then on the indies because things were just so hot, and it's like it's so different now where it's like you feel kind of silly to be a 40-year-old guy, you know, going to call an independent show for, you know, $50 on a Saturday night, you know, and that's no disrespect to anybody that does. I think it's awesome. I think it was a dream, you know, to even be able to do that, even make 25 cents. But, you know, it's like you kind of get to a point in your life where it's like, okay, you know, it's for whatever reason it's not happening. And I kind of thought it was going to happen when I started working with Steve Corino in Ring of Honor. We did that first show, and everybody was telling us we're going to be the next Sunday Night Heat team. Everybody's saying, you know, you guys are there, you guys are going to get it. And then, you know, unfortunately, CZW and Ring of Honor had their falling out. And I, you know, like an idiot, I chose CZW when I should have just stayed with Ring of Honor.
It happens, man. It happens.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say give up, you know, and I don't think you will. I just something will come around, and they say things happen for a reason, and I don't know how true it is, but it's our beliefs and it's what we have. Yeah. It's all we can go by. So I don't understand. It's the same example. I say when I don't have a deal with WWE, okay, I'm in good standing with them. I work with them a lot. I do a lot with them. But I don't have a deal. Yeah. I see a lot of guys that get deals that I'm happy for, and then I go, man, how is this guy getting a deal over me?
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
But at the same time, I'm not saying it might be a deal that, you know, that I don't want.
Yeah.
That I can't do it because I'm not a guy that can move to Florida for $600 a week.
Yeah.
You know, I got a family, I got kids, I got a business. I make a lot more than that doing my movies and running my business, running my wrestling.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, it's like I look at you as, you know, it's amazing. I was thinking about it today as I was putting the notes together. Oh, you know what? I was listening to an interview with Bob Holly, and he was talking about the developmental. And I don't know, I just started thinking about you because I was making some notes for the show. And I'm thinking, you know, here's a guy that's good enough to put on all their television shows, that's good enough to use to help get guys over. Not that you're getting Santino over, but you are. You know, I mean, you're right. Enhancing. I mean, that's what enhancement talent is. You know, you're good enough for that. You're good enough to be trusted to be put on their TV, but you're not good enough to work in their developmental league. I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Well, I was told by developmental that last time I went down in Tampa. I think I told you. I don't know if I discussed this or not. I really didn't bring it out. But, you know, I aced it. I went down there.
Yeah, you and I talked about it, but I mean, we didn't talk about it here. We talked about it off air.
Right. I was told that I'm more valuable to them as a coach in supplying them with talent.
And maybe you make a career out of that. I mean, there are a lot of guys that made a great career out of training guys and coaching guys and eventually catching on and being a trainer down there. Who knows?
Right. And I mean, do I want to be on TV? Yeah. And do I want to do it? But would I take a job as a coach? Yeah, I sure would.
Yeah.
So at this point, they feel that it's hard for them to teach me anything because of my knowledge and experience, which is, you know, it's a pat on the back, but it's also a kick in the ass.
Sure, exactly.
So it's one of those things where, you know, like, well, you're like, hey, I'm glad you have a lot of respect for me, and I'm glad you know, that you think that way about me, but at the same time, it's not all I'm going for.
Exactly.
But you know, it's like I said, it's better than nothing. So I mean, at least I got the credentials to help others.
Yeah, exactly, and at least you're on the radar.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I want to bring it back a little bit here and kind of go old school and, you know, talk about Randy Savage, the Macho Man. It was the 2-year anniversary since he passed away. And, you know, I don't know what he meant to you, but to me, I mean, he meant a lot. And, you know, it's like I grew up on the guy. And, you know, years later when I got into tape trading, I started getting his tapes from Memphis. And I was just blown away. I mean, I might put that out there as maybe the best that I've ever seen is his run in Memphis, and his promos in Memphis were just like just ridiculous. And you know, I think what made him so special and what made him stand out. And I remember when he passed away, I actually did an interview on CNN radio, and what I said was what made him so special is, you know, he came into the WWF at the time when it was like the land of the monsters. You know, it was Hogan and Andre and Bundy and Stud, and it was Tony Atlas and all these big guys. And you had Randy Savage, who was a pretty big dude in his own right, but kind of small in that land of the giants. And he brought this like sense of athleticism that just really, you know, wasn't there. I mean, you had the guys like the Tito Santanas and the Steamboats and the Valentines and Moroccos, but you didn't have anybody like Randy Savage. And
he was awesome.
Yeah, he was awesome. And I remember as a kid, I mean, you know, I was like 11, 12 years old. And I mean, I certainly wasn't smart to the business, but I just knew that there was something different when I would watch a WWF show and I'd see him on there. And, you know, guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Kurt Hennig, they're usually credited as pioneering that, like, you know, breaking through the mold and breaking through that, like, land of the monsters. But I really think if it wasn't for Randy Savage, that those guys would have had an even more difficult time getting to that next level.
Oh, I'd agree. I mean, Savage was the guy putting Hogan over most of the time, you know, and making Hogan look good.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what are your memories of Savage, like favorite matches or anything?
Man, I guess as a kid, I wasn't a big Savage fan. That didn't happen until I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. But I think Savage, his work rate was definitely awesome. He was good. But I got some funny stuff about Savage. That's why I was chuckling while you were saying that.
Sure.
I guess my favorite Savage memory is you know, Canyon. Chris Canyon was one of my best friends.
Okay.
So Canyon used to say how crazy Savage is, and like legit crazy in real life. And everybody knows the stories. You know, he would handcuff Miss Elizabeth in the bathroom.
Yes.
While he went for a match and stuff like that. So Canyon told me when he was supposed to have this little run with Savage, and this is when Savage was in WCW and he's doing the Slim Jim thing and all this other stuff. So Canyon had to do this a little program with him, and Canyon went, I think, on Jay Leno. I'm pretty sure it was Leno. It was one of the late night talk shows, and I'm pretty sure it was Leno because that's when Leno was doing a lot of work with those guys and stuff like that. So Canyon went on there and called him a has-been and said he's washed up and, you know, he's going to kick his ass and all this stuff.
Sure.
And Slim Jim called Savage up and said, well, they dropped him from his contract and said, yeah, we hear this guy's on TV calling you has-been and you're washed up, and we don't want no guy like that representing the company. So
wow.
So it costed Savage, you know, Canyon just cutting a promo on him, and it costed Savage his Slim Jim deal.
Holy man! Whoa, I never heard that story before.
Yeah, so Savage called Canyon up and was like, I'm gonna effing kill you when I see you, and like he was serious. So they had this whole thing for a while where like Kenny tried to avoid him because Savage was threatening his life because he lost the Slim Jim deal.
Oh my God!
Has been on the Jay Leno show.
That's awesome. And Savage is a dangerous dude. I mean, there are stories about him. I mean, there's a legendary story that when he, he and his father, his father had a promotion, ICW, and it was like an outlaw territory. And, back then, you were either affiliated with AWA or NWA or WWF or WWWF, or you were an outlaw territory. And they were an outlaw territory. And they used to go on TV, and they were in competition with Jerry Lawler's group. And they would get on TV, and Savage would challenge those guys to fights, like real fights all the time. And there were matches where Savage would go and sit ringside and at the Memphis shows, like as a shoot. And he wanted to fight these guys. And one time he went after Bill Dundee in the parking lot. I mean, the guy was like insane. He went after Bill Dundee in the parking lot, and Bill Dundee had a gun, and he wound up getting pistol whipped or something like from it. And there's a story I've heard Larry Madison tell it. He used to be associated with St. Louis Wrestling. That when Vince finally, saw Savage, that he liked him and wanted to sign him, but he was scared because he heard all these stories about Savage just being nuts. And, and there were several guys that had to actually vouch for Savage. He was a good dude. When he finally went to Memphis and he did business with Lawler, things kind of turned around. But he was a crazy, crazy son of a gun, like back in the day.
That's what makes me love him more.
Yeah.
'Cause, you got to respect the passionate, crazy guy like that. That sounds like something. I mean, honestly, that sounds like something I would do.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So just it's kind of it's weird, the bit like not having Savage around because you have all these icons left in wrestling, and Savage was such a huge icon from my childhood and a lot of people's childhoods, and it's just there's a really big void not having him around anymore.
No, it's not. And I mean, it's a shame with the whole WWE thing. I'm sure you've heard the rumors of why he hasn't been inducted in the Hall of Fame or whatever. But I don't know if the internet knows about him. So I'm sure some do, but I won't be the one to talk about it. But, it's like that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame probably more than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, more than anybody that's been inducted in like the last several years. That's maybe not Bruno Sammartino, but other than him,
right.
A couple other things I wanted to get to. Something I want to get to, but I think I'm going to save this for our next show, and I think this would be a lot of fun to talk about. The last couple of weeks that we've been doing this, I've wanted to get into the CZW XPW feud and kind of just like share stories from like what was going on your side and what was going on our side, and just like how ridiculous some of this stuff really was. But I don't know if we can do a full show on it, but I'm pretty sure we can do a lot on it. So rather than like just throw it in as a topic today and as part of the hodgepodge here of topics we're talking about, I think we're going to save that. Maybe the next time we do a show, we'll open up with that and we'll just kind of like riff on that for a little while.
I say we do it and we see where we go with it. I think we can talk forever on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be a lot of fun too.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, Dixie Carter, TNA president Dixie Carter, she says a lot of dumb things, Luke. I mean, I don't read this woman's Twitter, but I see like what people are reporting. I mean, the woman just says some really insane things.
She is a woman.
She is a woman. Yes, she is a woman. One thing she said last week that made a lot of headlines, and I think it kind of got blown out of proportion a little bit, and I'm certainly not a defender, but I'm also, I'm not looking to bash somebody if it's not warranted, is she did an interview, and she said that she was open to having joint shows with WWE and TNA together. And,
would, because that would boost up TNA.
Exactly. And people started trashing her, and I mean, the whole thing took on a life of its own. Like, people were making these false reports. Like, Dixie said that she wanted her, her to send her developmental guys to WWE, and she never said that. All she said is that she'd be open to joint shows. And honestly, I didn't think it was a dumb thing to say at all, because if I'm her, I mean, if you own a promotion, why wouldn't you want to have a joint show with WWE?
Right. Look what the stuff it did for ECW. Look what it did. With the God, what was the name of the Memphis stuff? They would send guys down.
Well, they had Smoky Mountain and USWA and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, they would always send Smoky Mountain guys when that was their developmental. Look at what it did for those territories. Why wouldn't And I think I actually think those territories were bigger than TNA.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument, and I remember this because I was pretty immersed in the business back then, with the territories. There was an argument, and, of taking a devil's advocate point of view, in that having those WWF stars of WWF at the time and WWF joint shows actually killed those territories because, and I'll throw this at you, and maybe, you can give me some thoughts on this as a promoter, is that once, if you're Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and once you bring in The Undertaker to Knoxville, let's say you're going to Knoxville, that's your home base, and you bring in The Undertaker, it's like you draw all these people, and you're putting The Undertaker over as this huge megastar. But, next week, you got to come back with the Dirty White Boy and Tracy Smothers and the Rock and Roll Express. And it's like, now you're showing your fans that it's like, our guys are good and our guys, are local, but these are the stars. We roll out the red carpet for the WWF guys. And some people will say that it actually killed the territories because once they brought in the WWF guys, people just waited and wanted to come back to see the WWF guys, and their guys were kind of marginalized. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I guess looking at it from that point, it's could be true, but I wasn't in that era. I didn't have that, I didn't get to grow up on that, so I can't really speak on that experience.
Sure.
I didn't get to go to all these local shows. I wasn't around for the Mid-South stuff. I mean, I was, but I didn't, I didn't really know about it because I was a poor white kid. I didn't have, I lived in the hood. Yeah. I was like a white kid in the neighborhood, so I didn't have cable. I didn't have any of that stuff, so I didn't really get a chance to see wrestling, which was only wrestling I got to see was WWF when it was on, and I was by a friend's house or by a family member's house or something that I could check it out at.
Yeah.
So that was my growing up things of wrestling. My first shows were some local shows around here called, I think it was NWF, and it was like, I think we talked about this already on
yeah, we did. We talked about our indie experiences there, going to indie shows.
Yeah, so that's where I got to get my first experiences on, some hands-on wrestling with guys I did not know.
Yeah.
So as well as some I did, like the Junkyard Dog and Bob Armstrong, but then you see the guys, like I said, the Night Stalker, who was Adam Bomb, and and they had Paul Orndorff there, and they had, that's when I first seen Jim Powers and this the guy Wild Thing. I don't remember what his name was, but I remember he was like one of the big stars of the show.
Yeah.
So that was my. I don't know if that hurts. It doesn't hurt us with Wildcat.
Yeah.
I don't think. I like to use it. I mean, I just had Chris Masters wrestle with Buku Dao, and they tore it up, and all they did was make Buku Dao a bigger star.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just think, I think people were bashing her and not really, looking at the big picture. I mean, who knows? If you put WWE and TNA shows, I mean, people aren't stupid. It's like they know WWE are already bigger stars. I mean, you put, Randy Orton on a show with James Storm, and, obviously Randy Orton's going to get that monster reaction. But, I just thought it was interesting that she came out and said it. But I thought she got a little too much heat for saying it.
I'll give you a prime example, and I'm using me. And it's kind of weird to talk about this, or I guess it's kind of putting me over, but at the same time, it's the truth. I wrestled Matt Hardy for the first time 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so this is the deal. It was on a show that was about 5 hours away from my home. In the sticks, that's not a regular promotion. This was the first time they ran a show, and it was Cassidy Riley who ran the show. He was a former WWE developmental guy.
Yeah, I kind of remember. I remember the name.
Right, he was a TNA guy for a while. He did the whole gimmick with Raven. He kind of looks similar to Shane Douglas. I like Cassidy. So Cassidy lives about 5 hours away. Now he ran a show about 5 hours away, and between Monroe and Shreveport, and down this road that was about 45 minutes off the interstate, down like a long country road.
Yeah.
To get in. So I'm thinking, here I am, wrestling Matt Hardy for the first time with all this hype, and it's going to be at this backwoods ass show.
Yeah.
That probably nobody's going to see. Maybe 100 people are going to see.
Yeah.
And the house was packed. Once we got there, doors open, about 1,000 people there.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. They had Al Snow. They had Robbie E. They had that Jesse guy from Big Brother that's with TNA.
Yeah.
They had Matt Hardy and myself. They had who else was there? Some of the Wildcat guys, but they had another name guy there. I'm trying to think of who it was. Chase Stevens from TNA.
Okay.
But they had a lot of guys with a lot of experience and star power, and from TNA and WWE.
Sure.
And here I am. I've never been on the contract with neither one. I've never wrestled in this area except I've wrestled in Monroe and I've wrestled in Shreveport for WWE in dark matches.
Okay.
So this is not close to me at all. I'm thinking nobody's going to know who I am up here. Doors open. I sold about $1,500 in merchandise.
Get out of here. That's awesome. God bless you. I think that's great.
Dude, they had Luke Hawx fans out the wazoo. They followed everything that was going on with me and Matt Hardy. They announced, people were bringing pictures that they printed up of me, and it was crazy. And when they announced, they said, we have this star here, they have this star here. They said, we have Robbie E. from TNA and Jesse and Al Snow. And the crowd's like, pop, 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 but not, just a clap. A few claps.
Yeah.
They say we have, Luke Hawx. Crowd goes crazy. They say we have Matt Hardy. Crowd goes crazy. And I'm going, holy shit. Does this feel good?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? These guys are on TV. And not to take anything away from those guys, because I think Robbie and them are hard workers. And, they're on TV. But it felt good to be more over, I would say, and more hyped than some guys that are on TV every week.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'll take my doing that, and I'll say that me and Matt Hardy sold that mofo out, that we take credit for that because that's who they came to see. They wanted to see Luke Hawx and Matt Hardy.
I think that's awesome. I think so how was the match?
We beat the hell out of each other.
Yeah.
Beat the hell out of each other and ended up being a double count out. So where the locker room separated, the locker room had to separate us. So it was a brutal match. And like I said, the crowd was really, really into it. So I couldn't have asked for better. Only thing I would have really liked to do was be in Philly because I think that crowd deserved to see it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about, as you're talking about your match and you're talking about the crowd, I'm thinking, man, if you actually got into a city, that some place like Philly that had some time invested in that angle, man, you guys could have done something special.
Yeah, and I think we still could. So we'll have to, hopefully somebody will take control and put this on in Philly because I want another shot at it. I want to take another crack at it.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do too. I think that, it's great because you guys, it seemed like at Extreme Rising, they were really starting to do something different with you and Matt Hardy. And, I told you privately that I was really enjoying, the interaction and stuff. And it just kind of sucked that things fell apart the way they did with the company at the end.
Right. It did. And, we've had offers, but here's the thing, we've got a legit feud going on. And, we want at each other. We want to tear at each other. But at the same time, it has to be around each other's schedules.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, I'm busy. He's busy. And I understand that. So we have to. It has to be booked somewhere. We can't snap our fingers and make it happen in an alley.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think that's great. Hopefully, do you have anything booked with him coming up or no? Nothing on the books.
Not nothing on the books yet. So hopefully, I know somebody was interested in taking it over to England. Another company in Maryland tried to get it, but Matt was already booked on the date. So. Yeah, a lot of people want it. I think the company up in Minnesota wants to do it. So I'll beat this guy up 7 days a week if I can.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he deserves it, quite frankly.
Exactly. For being a douchebag.
But no, I mean, it's funny because we're talking about this and, I mean, I think you guys have the potential if schedules work out and business is right. I think it has the potential to be one of those feuds that you could just see kind of traveling around the country on the different independents.
Yeah. I think I definitely see that. I definitely think we can both make some good shows. Make some good independent shows and put some asses in some seats.
Yeah, no, definitely. As we start to wrap up here, I put a blog up over at Camel Clutch blog today, and it was the top 10 WWE Championship shockers. And what the essence of the blog is just top 10, title changes, just WWE title changes, where you were just like, what the F? It was just like you didn't expect it. The top one that I put on there, because it was, I lived it as a kid, was Iron Sheik beating Bob Backlund. I mean, what you have to understand is at that time, Backlund had the title. I want to say he won it in 78 and lost. So it was like, I think it was 6 years. I think it was 84 or December 83. So a little shy of 6 years. And, and Backlund had some decent challengers along the way. But Iron Sheik really, he was pushed as a guy, but he wasn't pushed as this like monster. I mean, there were guys that were pushed a lot harder than him that Backlund survived against. And, and I remember Iron Sheik the month before, he was wrestling Tony Garea at Madison Square Garden. And so, he was a guy that I remember, I used to call the WWF hotline. It wasn't a 900 number, what they used to have. They used to have this regular number. It was just a regular number. It was like a voicemail. And after the Madison Square Garden shows, they would just put like Howard Finkel, our buddy Howard Finkel, he would just put the results on there, So I would wait, and call at like midnight or whatever. And I heard it, Iron Sheik beats Bob Backlund for the world title. I'm just like, what? So, I want to ask you, what, coming off the top of your head, what were moments, as a kid, when you watched the title change as a kid where you were just like, oh my God.
Probably when Hogan came back with Yoko and Brett, because that was, it was unexpected.
Yep.
Let's see. Not that it's a shocker. It was just so unexpected,
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's the first one that jumps out in my head. Let me see what else. Man, you got me in a blank on this one.
Yeah, I believe me, I did my research. I didn't come up with stuff off the top of my head either. I just, I know there's always one. For me, it was always Sheik beating Backlund. There's always one that like sticks out.
I was there for the Money in the Bank with the Jeff Hardy Punk for the first time. That was a cool one.
Okay, yeah. So that's a good one as well. Yeah. No, I just. I put the list together today, and I was like, you know what, I'll throw it out at you, and see if you had anything.
Yeah, I have to do some research. What do you think?
Like I said, Sheik and Backlund for me. In terms of wrestling history, it would probably be Ivan Koloff beating Bruno Sammartino, but I didn't live during that era. I'm only taking what I've read, what I've talked to Bruno, I've talked to Ivan, what I've heard. But what's really cool about that story is. Both of them told me that when Ivan pinned Bruno, that the place, which was sold out, and you remember, you've seen tape, like how crazy those fans were back then. They believed everything was real, and it is, of course, but they were buying everything. That when Ivan pinned Bruno, that the place was silent, like nobody said a word because they were in such shock. And Bruno told me that he thought that he lost his hearing. He thought that he injured his ear because, he had the crowd going the whole match, and then all of a sudden, it's just dead silence. And it was the fact that people were just in such shock. And, I don't think it really gets much better than that.
Right. Yeah, that's it. I'd like to go back, honestly, and I'm going to look at your list now. And I haven't had a chance to. I've been so busy, and then I go out of town tomorrow.
Sure.
So I'm definitely going to get on and look at your list, and I'd like to go back and actually catch up and watch maybe some of the things I didn't see ever. So I'm sure there's something on there that I didn't get a chance to watch as a kid. So I want to go back and look at what you wrote down and do a little research myself and check it out. Maybe we can talk about this on the next week's episode.
Awesome.
I'd also like to discuss, put in your notes, I got a really funny story about 900 numbers for you. So,
can we talk? Is it clean?
Oh, it's clean, but it's hilarious.
Okay.
So,
all right. Definitely. No, I never. I never had the guts to call the 900 numbers. I was like, parents would kill me. But they used to have, WWF used to have this number. It was weird. It was like just this voicemail, and they would just put up Madison Square Garden results after every show because it was like their pay-per-view back then. So
we get it's a quick story.
Okay.
I'll just say
what? Let's wait. We gotta leave a cliffhanger every once in a while.
All right.
Let's give him a cliffhanger. You know what? We're at an hour. I think we covered a lot of topics today. I've had a blast, so why don't we take, these final minutes here, and I'll throw it to you to plug away. Anything you want to talk to the listeners about?
Yeah, I got a big show in Orlando, Florida, this Friday night, 2 days from now, as I wrestle John Morrison for the first time.
Oh, wow.
For an indie company out there called Continental Wrestling Federation. And then Saturday night, I'm wrestling Bruce Santee for the first time ever, who me and Bruce have been trying to go at it for about 8 years now. So we got that. And June 8th, Wildcat returns. Check us out at wildcatsports.com. And, of course, follow us on Twitter, Wildcat Sports, and Luke Hawx 504 Twitter.
All right, good stuff. I'm curious. Next time we're on the air here, I want to talk to you about the John Morrison match. I'm curious. I think you guys could. I mean, there's so much potential there to just blow the roof off.
Yeah, we've been looking forward. That's another match I've really been looking for. I've known John a long time since he started, so it's really nice to get to go at it and finally go at it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
He's a talented guy. He's a really talented guy, so it's nice to be able to share a ring with him.
He's a talented guy, but he deserves an ass kicking.
He does. Well, I didn't say I wasn't going to kick his ass.
On my end here, you can always, if you missed any of the show or you want to go back and listen to some older shows, I post a show everywhere. I have a YouTube channel. You can look up Camel Clutch Blog on YouTube. On iTunes, you can just search Pro Wrestling Radio. Of course, ProWrestlingRadio.com. You listen to this show and old shows and all kinds of old interviews. The Bruno interview I was talking about is on there. And also CamelClutchBlog.com. That's my wrestling and MMA and whatever blog. And you go there and read the top 10 championship shockers and anything else that's coming down the pike. That's over at CamelClutchBlog.com, and you can tweet me as well at CamelClutchBlog. And Luke, I'm looking at the calendar, and I'm not going to set anything in stone yet, but it's looking like our next show will probably be June 4th or June 5th, and I'll talk to you, and we'll put a time together. But so the next show we already got some topics. We already got the CZW XPW feud, which we're going to talk a lot about. We got your match with John Morrison and 900 numbers.
900 numbers, baby. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
So don't forget to watch Wildcat Sports on YouTube.
Yeah. How can they find it? Do you have your own YouTube channel or?
Yeah, check out just Google YouTube Wildcat Sports.
Awesome.
And there's many things come up. Some people record with their cell phones and stuff. But definitely check out the official Wildcat Sports.
Good stuff. Well, Luke, I want to thank you, as always, for being on the show today. It's always it goes super fast. I feel like we just started the show 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. We could probably do this for hours, but at the same time, it might burn people out. So, yeah, I think it's good timing.
Exactly. So, good luck. Good luck with your match with John Morrison. I'm sure you guys will blow the roof off, and we'll talk about it when we're back here June 4th or June 5th.
For sure. Thanks for having us. Thanks for listening to us.
Yep, thanks for listening. Spread the word and rate us on iTunes because that's how we can develop a little following here. So we appreciate it. And that's it. All right. That was awesome. That was great, Luke.
Yeah.
This is Eric Gargiulo, your host of Pro Wrestling Radio. And don't forget to check out my daily blog, www.camelclutchblog.com, where you can read about wrestling, mixed martial arts, football, all sports, pop culture, politics, and more. That's www.camelclutchblog.com.
What you gonna do? You can't fight the future. Wrestling God.
ProWrestlingRadio.com presents
Are you talking to me?
Pro Wrestling Radio live online.
You think The Rock actually cares?
What is he doing here?
Oh, it's true.
I'm bringing everybody with me.
That's hard time.
To be the man.
6, 1. Can you feel it?
I hate your ever. Hold the damn phone.
That's how I roll.
You're sick. Come get some. Because I've done all of that.
The king is back on his throne.
And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so.
And we are live on Pro Wrestling Radio. My name is Eric Gargiulo, and I am here with my co-host, as always, Luke Hawx, and we have a lot to get to. We are back after a week off, and I believe, Luke, are we going to be here for the hour, or are we going to be here for 45 minutes tonight?
We'll be here as long as it takes. I say we do this, we knock it out, and, we roll with the punches.
Awesome. I love it. And, if you're listening to the show, I have this show all over the place. I have this show on YouTube. I have this show on iTunes, on Stitcher. I have it. I put it up on a couple of other different places, too. So if you're listening to this recorded, you can always join the show live over at prowrestlingradio.com/listen. And you don't have to download anything. You could just listen to it right there. We broadcast on Mixlr, and there's also a chat room that you could jump into as well. All you have to do is log in with your social media credentials. So, yeah, you can do that when we broadcast the show live. But with that said, Luke, there is a lot to get to. I think the first topic on the board today would be Extreme Rules. The pay-per-view was this past Sunday night. I got a chance to see it. Did you get a chance to see the show?
No, I missed out. Perry got to see it, though.
Oh, Perry got to see it. Did Perry like the show? Perry's Luke's son, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you like the show?
It was a pretty good pay-per-view, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a show myself, so I was on the road all Sunday, so I didn't get back until about 1 in the morning. Well, 1 Monday morning.
Oh, okay. What did you hear about it? Like from your friends or your colleagues?
Well, the biggest thing I seen mostly was on Twitter was the finish between Cena and Ryback.
Yeah.
So, I should have Googled it and try to pull up a little link to see what they did. But what ended up happening? What was the big commotion about?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. For those of you that don't know, they had a last man standing match. And for those of you that don't know, last man standing match is basically like the old school Texas death matches that I used to watch as a kid here in Philly when WWF and WWF would come to town. They'd have these Texas death matches where, the guys would have a 10 count to get up, and whoever couldn't get up past the count of 10, the other guy was the winner. So, they had their match, which actually really wasn't that bad. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, at least the first half. The second half got a little ridiculous, and we can get into that. But the story here is really the finish. The finish of the match was Ryback picking up Cena and giving him a spear through the wall, like through that like stage wall where they all come out. You've come out of that wall several times in your career, so right. You're familiar with that wall. So Ryback speared him through the wall, and they played it off like there was electrocution, there were shocks, they had like some minor pyro go off. And, yeah, and then they show them backstage, and they're both down. They're both out. Cena's not moving. Ryback's moving a little bit, and they're playing it off like it's a real deal. Like these guys are really hurt, and there's a serious injury here. But what winds up happening is, God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah. What winds up happening is the medics put a neck brace on Cena and wind up taking him out on a stretcher where they help Ryback, and he leaves and he walks back. And what was weird about it, Luke, was they didn't announce the winner at that point. They just kind of cut away. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, okay, you have Cena being stretchered out in a neck brace. And you have Ryback, who's up with help, of course, but he's up and walking to the back. By the rules of a last man standing match, Ryback should be the winner. He's up, he's walking, whether it's with assistance or not. Cena's not, he's on the stretcher, and they never announced the finish. Their excuse was that neither guy got up at the count of 10, so it was a draw, but they never announced it. It was a bullshit finish, and it was bull because they didn't even announce it, so they knew that it was a bad finish.
Well, didn't they do the same thing Monday night with Kurt Axel? I know we'll get into this later, but with Kurt Axel and Triple H, they didn't announce a finish where Triple H should have been counted out.
Yeah, it's so bizarre, Luke, that they would do this stuff 2 nights in a row. They do these like major injury angles 2 nights in a row. So basically the controversy around this finish is that it's a last man standing match, and you had Ryback walking away essentially, Cena stretchered, and yet he didn't get the title. And, for me, Luke, I don't really have a problem with that finish in any other match. I mean, I think it's actually a pretty creative finish because neither guy has to do a job, and they're both put over strong, so you can come back with a rematch. But why in the world would you why would you book a last man standing match if that's your finish? So I don't know about you. You're kind of hearing the finish from me.
Right.
What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I didn't see it, but the way you described it, like you said, I would think it's a BS finish.
Yeah.
If Ryback would, and I say that because the way you explain it, it sounds like the belt should have been the Ryback if both men weren't, completely down and out.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the controversy. And, the fans in St. Louis were chanting bull. And, Twitter was going nuts with people chanting. And, it's like, I don't really care. I'm not invested one way or the other. I could really care less if Ryback goes over or Cena goes over. But, you're charging people $50, $60 to watch this last man standing match. You have a guy get up and walk away. Yeah, and you're not giving him a finish. It just seemed kind of cheap to me.
Yeah. I would imagine. It sounds like I'd be pissed if I would have paid for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, and it turned into a little bit more controversial because, they were promoting this post-game show throughout the pay-per-view. They were doing this post-game show, and I didn't see it. Once the pay-per-view was over, I was done. I went up to bed. But from what I saw the next morning, that Cena took his neck brace off and really didn't even sell the injury on the post-game show. So it's like, okay, you have this finish where this guy stretchered out with a neck brace, and then,
he's selling towards the kids and towards the girls, and I would think guys that appeal to our demographic are more of the hard workers, like not saying, and I don't say that Cena don't work hard, more of the Bryan Danielsons, those guys, the Dean Ambrose, who's somebody who's on the indies you want to pay attention to, you really want to see get pushed more instead of the commercial guy, so to say.
Yeah, and and to your point, it's like, when it comes to people like you and me, we're in the minority, and I don't think people realize that. When people get on the internet and they they bitch and complain about about Cena and that kind of thing, and they want CM Punk to have this monster push and Daniel Bryan to have this monster push. I love Daniel Bryan. I'd like to see it too. And you and I already talked about Cesaro, but at the end of the day, you and I and a lot of those fans are such a small minority that, like you said, their business are the families, the wives that are bugging their husbands to go and watch, and their boyfriends to watch Cena, and the kids that are bugging their parents to buy those goofy looking hats. And at the end of the day, nothing's going to change. And if I were running that business, and Luke, I'm sure if you were in charge of WWE, you'd probably do the same thing. You'd probably be pushing Cena to the moon too.
Of course, yeah. It's one of the things. Well, why wouldn't you? He's he's a top guy, of course, and he works hard. He sells tickets, and there is a noticeably major difference in seats and sales when Cena is on a show and not on a show. And yeah. I mean that if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Bottom line. So Cena sells tickets. Cena's got to be a top guy. And if, at the same time, Cena stepped back. He took a break for a long time.
Yeah,
there was many times when Cena wasn't there or didn't have the main spot, and I don't remember who had it at the time. It might have been Punk, but so at the same time, Cena has to have his due and his time. And again, how long it's going to last? I hope not forever.
Yeah,
I hope they give somebody else a chance. And I guess what Cena's doing now is building Ryback. We'll see what they do with Ryback, but I'd also like to see some other guys in that spot. And at this point, I don't know who else could take that spot. Who do you think could take that spot?
Well, that's exactly my point. I wrote a blog on this, and that was exactly my point. It's like, you're 20 minutes later, he's on the post-game show just hanging out. And it's funny because I was talking to one of the writers on Camel Clutch blog about it, and I said that it's a perfect finish for a heel champion. You have a heel champion in one of these kind of matches, and you have that champion kind of fake it, so to speak, that he gets taken out in the stretcher and he gets taken out with the neck brace. And then once, everything kind of settles down, you see him later just pop up and no-sell the injury. So, I mean, I think it's a great finish for a heel, but it just made no sense. They went through all this trouble and he didn't even sell the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where we get into the Super Cena stuff because, for a while there, Cena couldn't be touched. He now at least he sells a lot now. That's one thing I'll say about Cena. And I won't knock Cena's hard work. And I guess it's not Cena's fault.
Yeah.
I guess that's because we got to remember WWE has agents, they have writers, they have all this. So I'm sure Cena has input, and I'm sure Cena has a lot of input. But at the end of the day, I would think he doesn't vote.
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up on us there a little bit, and I don't want to miss any of the important words that are coming out of your microphone.
Let's turn it off. How about that? Is it better?
Not. We're getting like feedback on you.
Really? I don't know why. I'm about 2 feet away from my Wi-Fi box.
All right, there we. I think that sounds a little better.
All right.
Yeah. So you were talking about Super Cena. And I guess that kind of brings me to my next point, and this is something I wanted to talk about too with you, is that, there was this outcry, this backlash on the internet about Super Cena after the match, and especially when he didn't sell it, when he didn't sell the thing on the post-game show. And, you had people outraged and they're sick of Cena and, they think that Cena's just getting this monster push and they want WWE to do something different. And, I don't know about you, but I'm not a big Cena fan. I respect what he's done, and I think he's a hard worker. But it's just not my thing, not what I like to watch. But
he is guilty, right? Which is okay. I mean, he generally doesn't appeal to our demographic. So, and that's not what they got him there for, because he's that's not what he sells.